Hey everyone, welcome to this week's video. This week I have a project with a maple blank. This is a figured maple bowl blank I got at Rockler, and it is 9 by 2. Here you see me finding center and then drilling for the woodworm screw and placing in the 4-jaw chuck. So I hope you can stick around and see what I make. I think it came out pretty good, and it's a little different from what I usually do, so stick around. Here I'm truing it up a little bit with the bowl gouge, making sure it's completely round before I work on the bottom. If you're interested in any of the tools I use, I do have links in the video description. I often comment on the bowl gouge I'm using because I absolutely love it. It is a Carter & Sons Two Works bowl gouge, and it's a very good investment if you're doing any amount of turning at all. So here, just truing up the bottom, making it flat, getting reference points for how I want to make the mortise or tenon. Hey, remember that bet I told you about in my last video? Well, it's still on. I have until May 31st to win the bet, and the bet is that I can get to 15,000 subscribers by May 31st. So if you're not subscribed, please, 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 please click the subscribe button. I will be eternally grateful. And using the diamond parting tool to make the recess. Back to the bowl gouge here to hug out some of that material. And switching over to the skew chisel to make sure it's flat and that I have an angle that's correct for my 4-jaw chuck. Here you can see me defining the foot a little bit, as well as rounding over the edges. Starting to make the shape of the bowl. As you can see, I'm being covered in shavings. And stopping to check the progress on the bowl and admiring that beautiful figure. And back with the bowl gouge to do some pull cuts and shear scraping as well to round over the corner. The better you are at shear scraping, the less sanding you have to do. At least I have found anyway. So as you could see, when I stopped it, I still had some ridges. I still had have some work to do. At this point of the project, I'm also figuring out how the bowl is going to be on the top and how the underside and the corner, the curve will affect that. Because I'm going for a little bit of a different shape than usual, I think I changed my mind a couple times during the turning, which is not, abnormal for what I do anyway in my process. But really trying to figure out the opening of the top of the bowl, and that's why you could see me, stop and then, do some more cutting. Here I'm using sanding sealer to seal before finishing the bottom of the bowl with some Axe abrasive paste and then polishing paste. As I mentioned in most of my videos, you can find the Axe products in my video description, and there is a discount code if you use a code PF10. And if you haven't tried it, it's a great buy. Go ahead and order some. It's made in the USA, and I promise you will not be disappointed. And the polishing paste. I mean, it really, really brings out the figure in this maple, I have to say. I like Axe because it's made in the USA, and also the price point is very good, as well as just watch how this shines without being too glossy. And it's just very easy to use. I like that it's quick and not cumbersome. Taking it off the wood worm screw here and reversing it in the 4-jaw chuck. So when I turn on the lathe after I've reversed something or remounted it, I always like to make sure it's running true. Sometimes it can get out of balance. If you haven't either made your tenon or mortise correctly, or it's just not in the 4-jaw chuck correctly. So those are some things to check if you're finding some wobbles when you do that. So a couple passes to flatten the bottom and see the reference points from the corner to the top of the bowl, figuring out where to stop and have the opening. Softening the edge there, as you can see on the side of the bowl. Now it looks like I'm making a recess for a foot, but in fact this is going to be the opening of the bowl. Keep watching and you'll see what I mean. At this point I think it looks something like you would put a tea light in, but this is not what it is. Using the Easy Wood hollower here, number 1 hollower with the negative rate carbide cutter. I'm going to be hollowing out this, and I don't have a, swan neck cutting tool, hollowing tool, or any fancy systems. So I'm just taking my time and hogging out as much as material as I can, needing to use the air gun here and many times throughout to get the dust and the particles out. So an unusual stance here with the number 1 hollower. I have it on the right side, cutting with the lathe in reverse. I don't suggest trying this unless you feel completely safe doing it. Sanding was a bit tricky on the inside, but taking my time, I did get it sanded up to 400 on the inside. Denatured alcohol. This cleans the surface of any dust and preps it for some sanding sealer. I get some questions, or I have recently anyway, about what kind of sanding sealer I use. It is linked in the video description. It's a brand called Zinsser's sanding sealer. It's a pretty common brand, I think. But if you want some, you can check out the link in the video description. denibbing it here with some steel wool, or Scotch-Brite pad, I mean. And starting again with the Axe abrasive paste and then the Axe polishing paste. Same process as before, so this is sped up a little bit. But putting on the abrasive paste and turning on the lathe and then buffing it off. And then a similar process with the polishing paste. Again, if you want to try Axe, remember the discount code PF10. There's a link in the video description to get to the Axe website. So here I have a container that I'm using to cast some resin, and what you see inside the container is some purple heart, and I believe it's walnut. And I have pink and yellow resin, and I'm spilling it because I'm clumsy. But I end up putting this in the pressure pot and using this for the handle to go, to be the top on the bowl. Ended up doing one more pour of just pink off camera. Here I have it mounted on a waste block, finding center, and then the process of turning. At first I used the stub center and I put the blank between centers until I can make a tenon. A view from above. Starting out a little wobbly, as you can see. Using a Easy Wood Tools carbide cutter here, which is great for resin. And it's a little bit rough at first because it's wobbly, and it's hard to get the RPMs up when it's like this to get a good cut. So it takes a minute, but once it's trued, the lathe is sped up considerably, and then some, you can see some real shavings fly off. Here's the skew chisel. Sped up a little, but not as fast as it will get up to. Making shavings, making snow. It is a very messy process. So a little different angle here. Still with the skew chisel. Working on the tenon. Now the blank is in the 4-jaw chuck, and I'm continuing to use Easy Wood Tools with carbide tips to shape the blank. And now you can, as you can see, the shavings coming off in like it's snowing, like it's a blizzard. I looked like the abominable snowman. Kind of like an egg shape here, I think, although that's not what it's going to end up being, but the top of the bowl is not going to be huge, so there was a lot of material to remove here. And remember, there was some wood casted with the resin, so you'll see some wood emerging here, at least a little bit of it. And you can see the purple heart there. So as you can see, just shaping, continuing to shape. And more shaping, and more shaping, and more shaping. I think the top took me as long as the bowl did. Probably longer if you count the casting. Using Starbond CA glue here to fill some of the holes before I continue on with the shaping of the top. And I don't film at all, so up next you'll see some photos of the final project. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. It would help me out tremendously. And here it is. Let me know what you think in the comments. I really appreciate the comments, and I will answer every single one. So thanks again. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, peace out.